Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolute masterclass from sound expert Julian Treasure on how we can completely transform our everyday communication. We're going to look at how to stop just making noise and start generating genuine, meaningful influence. So often we just take speaking and listening totally for granted, right? We treat it like a biological reflex instead of a highly sophisticated, tunable craft. But I promise you, by the end of this, you are going to see and hear your own voice in a completely different light.
If you're speaking and no one is listening, you're not communicating, you're just making noise. Man, that quote perfectly captures our modern dilemma. We live in this society that is absolutely starved for genuine understanding, and yet we are constantly drowning in voices and information. Julian Treasure reminds us that communication is not a one-way street. Think about it. If your message isn't landing, if it isn't being warmly received by the person on the other end, well, it's just noise filling up a room. We've got to learn to project our thoughts with pristine clarity and real intention if we actually want to invite the world to listen.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the loss of listening, run a quick self-audit on the 7 deadly sins of speaking, explore the HAIL framework, learn how to master your vocal toolbox, and finally wrap up with the incredible power of conscious listening.
Let's start by diagnosing the problem: the loss of listening and the crisis of passive hearing. Because we currently exist in a world that is totally saturated with digital notifications, urban clamor, and just an endless barrage of media noise.
We've essentially become experts at hearing noise, but absolute novices at listening to meaning. Because of all this sonic garbage, our brains are literally forced to filter out sound just to survive the sheer sensory overload. What's the first thing we do when we walk down a busy street? We pop in our noise-canceling headphones to escape the sirens and the jackhammers, right? Which effectively isolates us even further. This habit of passive hearing has slowly replaced deep, conscious listening. And this cultural shift toward fast-paced sound bites, it means we're actively losing the patience for nuanced, thoughtful conversations. We find ourselves incredibly isolated simply because we've stopped exercising the mental muscle required to truly hear one another.
And this has some really devastating real-world consequences. Get this. Bad acoustics and noisy environments can reduce workplace productivity by up to 60%. That is a staggering amount. Think about the modern open-plan office. The unpredictable, intrusive hum of your coworkers' conversations is constantly draining your cognitive energy. It acts as this massive hidden tax on our focus and our overall mental well-being. We stubbornly design our buildings for our eyes, but the reality is we live in them with our ears.
Moving into the 7 deadly sins of speaking, identifying habits that close ears. Before we can improve our delivery, we really need to honestly audit our own bad habits. We have to identify exactly what we're doing that makes us completely ignorable.
Why is the world ignoring you? Seriously, take a second to truly reflect on that question. We so often blame the listener, but more often than not, we are the ones pushing people away through our own poor speech patterns. We unwittingly set up these invisible barriers that just destroy our credibility before our message even has a chance to land.
If you want to be heard, you absolutely have to avoid these 7 deadly sins: gossip, judging, negativity, complaining, dogmatism, lying, and exaggeration. We all know that one person who drains the energy right out of a room by constantly complaining, right? Complaining about the weather, the news, the coffee. It just becomes this contagious misery. Or think about dogmatism, that frustrating habit of constantly confusing personal opinions with hard facts. Things like gossip and negativity instantly make people want to distance themselves from you, mostly because they know if you're gossiping about someone else, you're definitely going to gossip about them eventually. And lying or exaggeration, they absolutely destroy the very foundation of communication, which is trust. Eliminating these habits is literally the first step toward becoming a person others sincerely want to listen to.
Which brings us to the HAIL framework, the pillars of authentic influence. So how do we fix all this? Well, before we can tune our physical vocal cords, we first have to tune our moral intent. And we do that by anchoring ourselves to this HAIL framework.
HAIL provides this brilliant, incredibly simple map for how to conduct ourselves in literally every single conversation. H is for honesty, just being absolutely clear and straight. A is for authenticity, standing firmly in your own truth without hiding behind some corporate mask. I is for integrity, doing exactly what you say you will do to build immense trust. And L is for love, simply wishing people well. And here is where the synergy really happens. Honesty is vital, sure, but without love, absolute honesty can just be brutal. Love acts as this essential filter that prevents our honesty from becoming unnecessarily harsh or cruel.
Checking our alignment with these 4 pillars is exactly what separates true resonant leaders from people who just happen to occupy empty positions of power.
Now for mastering your vocal toolbox and tuning the human instrument. With our intent beautifully aligned through Hail, it's time to open up that vocal toolbox and actually learn how to play the human instrument.
I want you to picture a highly sophisticated physical soundboard sitting right in front of you. Faders, dials, knobs, the whole shebang. Your voice has those exact same controls: register, timbre, prosody, pace, pitch, and volume. Most people use only a tiny fraction of their vocal potential. They just kind of go through life speaking in this monotone baseline. But when you actively imagine pushing the faders up and down on all these different elements, you take complete control. You can precisely match your delivery to dictate the exact emotional and psychological impact of your message.
Let's start with register, which is where your voice actually resonates in your body. Notice how dropping your resonance down into your chest naturally commands respect. It conveys this sense of grounded confidence and physical weight that people just naturally defer to. On the flip side, if you're speaking entirely from up in your nose or your throat, it lacks that depth. It's physically lighter and it immediately diminishes your authority. Shifting your internal resonance quite literally changes how your message is physically felt by your audience.
Next up, we have prosody. This is the melody of your speech. It's the bounce, the rhythm, the musicality of a truly great storyteller. Without it, you just sound like a robot reading a stereo manual, and the human brain deeply struggles to follow that kind of flatline for extended periods of time. By mastering prosody, you're using your natural melody to emphasize the crucial parts of a story, which keeps your audience hopelessly hooked and completely emotionally invested.
And then we have the powerful weight of absolute silence. Sometimes the absolute most powerful thing we can possibly say is nothing at all. Just letting a moment hang. Allowing a well-placed pause gives the listener the necessary space to think, to really feel, and to digest a complex idea. Honestly, it is the ultimate hallmark of a supremely confident speaker.
Moving into the power of conscious listening and deep human understanding. Because a beautiful, perfectly tuned voice means absolutely nothing if we don't master the reciprocal art of active listening. Speaking and listening are quite literally 2 sides of the exact same coin.
You see, listening is not some passive state where sound just casually washes over you. It's a highly active process broken down into 5 distinct stages: receiving, attending, understanding, responding, and remembering. But ironically, most of us fail right at step 1, receiving. Why? Because we're way too busy formulating our own brilliant reply in our heads rather than actually taking in the sound. Once we actually receive the sound, we move to attending, which means giving it our undivided concentration. Next is understanding, where we decode the message without layering our own bias over it. Then responding, to show we're engaged. And finally, remembering, which integrates that interaction into a shared history.
In conflict, the first person to truly listen is the one who leads the way to peace. This active listening becomes our absolute best tool when we're navigating conflict. When someone comes at us with anger, our primal instinct is to retreat right into a bunker. We throw our defensive armor on, we start shouting back, and we completely stop listening. But most conflicts don't arise from a simple difference of opinion. They come from a total failure to listen to the other person's underlying emotional needs. Stepping out of that bunker mentality and offering genuine validation immediately lowers the emotional temperature of the room.
Because understanding is the true antidote to anger. When you consciously shift from a critical, deeply judgmental position to an empathetic, fiercely curious one, you completely validate the other person's humanity. You stop seeing them as an opponent that needs to be defeated, and you start seeing them as a partner that needs to be understood. This kind of profound validation tells them their experience actually matters. It melts away their need to be aggressive, and it makes difficult, complex problem-solving entirely possible.
And that brings us to a manifesto for a conscious world and your sonic legacy. Mastering your voice and conscious listening isn't just some clever life hack to get ahead in the boardroom. It is fundamentally about designing a much more connected, compassionate world. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative choice today. Will you contribute noise or will you create understanding? We possess this profound power to design our own lives through the sounds we intentionally create and the silence we bravely protect for others. So step out into the world today, audit your habits, and drop those 7 deadly sins. Practice the HAIL framework with literally everyone you meet. Master the dials on your vocal toolbox. The long journey toward a better world begins the very moment we sincerely start to listen to one another.